personalizing is an essential part of the Toni&guy philosophy. Texturizing techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting, and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. The square layer cut creates internal texture and shape on a mid-length baseline. The perimeter has been created by using the one-length technique and also the forward graduation technique, both of which can be viewed in this collection. But to briefly recap these techniques: one-length recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into a diagonal forward, into horseshoe. The distribution moves from natural fall into over-directed. Elevation is 0 degrees, held in the comb, and the line is cut square. Forward graduation recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into diagonal back, into pivoting diagonal back. Distribution is T to the parting. Elevation is a stationary 45 degrees. The line is cut visually from the baseline up. Having checked the balance of the forward graduation, a profile section is taken, approximately ½ an inch wide, from the front hairline to the nape. With the head upright, the section is combed to 90 degrees using the fine teeth of the comb. The line is cut square using the front and side perimeter as a guide to length. From the crown to the occipital, the hair is over-directed up and continued square to follow the guideline. Radial partings are taken from the crown to the top of the ears, separating the back sections from the front. Keeping the profile parting in place, a pivoting radial section is taken from the crown to the nape. With the head upright, the section is combed at 90 degrees to over-directed. And cut to follow the guideline. Pivoting radial sections are continued until reaching the radial parting, and the technique repeated. Repeat the process on the opposite side. Note the hand, arm and body positions, which all promote squareness. Check balance and cross-check using diagonal back sections. Working in front of the radial parting, a horizontal section is taken from the profile parting to the hairline at the side. With the head upright, using the fine teeth of the comb, the section is combed at 90 degrees to over-directed. The line is cut square, using the profile and the previous section as guides to length. Continue the horizontal sections forward and repeat the technique in exactly the same way. The last horizontal section at the front hairline is over-directed back to the previous section to allow for the recession area. Cross-check using diagonal back sections. Repeat the process on the opposite side. Using horizontal sections, continue working forward on the head. Once again, cross-check with diagonal back sections. The hair is now ready for blow drying. power dry to remove excess moisture. Work in sections up the head using a round brush. Here the hair has been coloured using the reverse diagonal technique, which can be viewed on our classic colouring series. The shape is checked visually. Square layer recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into pivoting radials, into horizontal. Distribution moves from 90 degrees to over-directed. Elevation is also 90 degrees to over-directed. And the line is cut square. Personalizing is an essential part of the Toni&guy philosophy. Texturizing techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting, and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. The round layer technique creates texture through the internal area of the cut and softness around the perimeter. A profile section is taken approximately ½ an inch wide from the front hairline to the nape. With the head upright, the section is combed up at 90 degrees using the fine teeth of the comb. The line is cut to follow the head from the front hairline to the nape. Balance. radial partings are taken from the crown to the top of the ears on both sides, separating the back from the front. A pivoting radial section is taken from the crown to the nape. With the head upright, the section is combed up to 90 degrees, again using the fine teeth of the comb. The line is cut following the head shape, using the profile section as a guide. Continue taking pivoting radial sections until the initial radial parting is reached. Always subdivide the previous section to use as a guide. Repeat the process on the opposite side. Cross-check technically for shape and balance. Working in front of the radial parting, pivoting radial sections are continued until reaching the profile section. Continue to cut using exactly the same method. cross-check by taking diagonal back sections, elevating to 90 degrees, and removing any excess length. Repeat the process on the opposite side, using the same pivoting radial sections. Again cross-check using diagonal back sections. Check balance. The hair is now blow-dried, using a round brush to straighten the model's natural wave. Here, the hair has been coloured using the diagonal W technique, which can be viewed on the Toni&guy Classic Colour series. The perimeter is personalised to suit the individual, using a combination of point cutting and deeper parallel point cutting.
As hairdressers, we all understand why it is important to have an established core of classic haircuts that work across all lengths and textures. With this in mind, Toni&guy created the original Classic Cuts video collection. This has played a major part in the educational program that has helped establish our worldwide reputation. At Toni&guy, we are constantly inspired by contemporary fashion trends and reflect these in our annual collections. Now we have also revised our basic techniques and present a second collection of classic cuts, which as well as updating the original cuts, have added a men's collection and a guide to personalizing techniques. This collection of videos and the accompanying step-by-step book will provide you with a solid foundation in the skills of modern haircutting and color. Classic Cuts 2 from Toni&guy.
The graduated layer technique creates shape and texture through the interior and graduated softness around the perimeter. A profile parting is taken from the center of the forehead to the center of the nape. A horseshoe section is taken from below the crown to the recession area. A slightly diagonal forward section is taken from the center of the horseshoe down to the nape. With the head upright, the section is combed and elevated to 90 degrees. The line is cut to decrease in length from the interior to the perimeter. Diagonal forward sections are continued through the back to behind the ear. Subdivide the previous section to use as a guide. Comb and elevate to 90 degrees and cut to follow the guideline. From the ear forward, continue working with diagonal forward sections. Comb and elevate to 90 degrees and cut to decrease in length. The last section is over-directed back to the previous to maintain length and softness at the perimeter, and can be personalized once the shape is dried. Cross-check horizontally. The technique is repeated on the opposite side. Note how the hand position changes. Balance is checked before continuing. Radial partings are taken from the crown to the top of the ear, separating the back sections from the front. A pivoting radial section is taken from the crown to the top of the occipital. With the head upright, the section is combed to 90 degrees. The line is cut, connecting the internal length to the previously cut graduation at the same angle. Pivoting radial sections are worked in the same way. Cutting to follow the guide until the radial parting is reached. The technique is repeated on the opposite side. Again, note how the hand position has changed. Check balance. Working in front of the radial parting, diagonal forward sections are continued through to the front hairline. Each section is combed and cut at 90 degrees, extending the graduation guideline. The last section is over-directed back to the previous to allow for the recession area. Cross-check horizontally. The technique is repeated on the opposite side. A profile section is taken from the front hairline to the crown. Using the crown as a guide to length, the hair is combed to 90 degrees and point cut square. Maintaining the length at the front hairline. Across the top, horizontal sections are taken. The hair is combed to 90 degrees and the line point cut from the profile parting to the outer edge. The choice to layer round or square can be made depending on suitability. In this case, the line is cut square. The last horizontal section is once again over-directed back to allow for the recession area. The opposite side is point cut in the same way. And the balance checked. The hair is now ready for blow drying. Power dry to remove excess moisture. And use a flat brush to create a textured finish. The shape is personalized to suit the individual. The perimeter is detailed using a combination of point cutting and surface channeling. Here, the hair has been coloured using the reverse diagonal horseshoe technique, which can be viewed on the Toni&guy Classic Colour series.